what Trump could do for the Democrats, what's the outcome that consider him winning the war?
The Democrats don't believe he can do anything well. They wish for his death.
So
Okay,
what's the point?
we'll have to.
So, Sketch, the question is like, given that the Democrats will not be happy with anything that President Trump does, so what's the point? Like, why would it? So, I think he does think then why would a win stop them anyways, right? So, what could
It
be the
wouldn't.
win?
It wouldn't. It wouldn't. But
So
it would
then
stop.
why
It would gain the middle.
the middle? So you're not trying to convince the Democrats; you're trying to convince
No.
the middle. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That's what. Okay. So Ida's question then would change to what would convince the middle that he's winning the war? What would convince them?
Change probably what they would want. They want the dust back. They would say they can't keep the material, and they would probably want to see a change in the regime. Like
So
if the middle would they would like we went in because of the dust. This was the excuse that was used. This was like, hey, they got that dust. We got to get that dust. Leaving that dust would be a problem, and I don't see how they're going to get a dust through a deal.
So my impression, and as a non-American, you could correct me if I'm wrong about this. As a non-American, my impression is that the Americans care more about, I don't know, inflation and gas prices than whether or not they're going to get the nuclear dust back.
I was
So
looking yesterday at the polling, and the polling has an 80% of Americans do not want the IRGC to have a nuclear weapon. 75% are in favor of military operations. We like to take this anecdotal. This is what I've told you before. I despise anecdotal evidence. I despise what I hear, where my family, where I live. I don't care. There's 350 million Americans. 70 million of them are in the middle belt, in the middle
But
America.
just to be
So
clear, when I say just to be clear, when I say I've heard, what I mean is like I heard the statistics. Like I'm not basing it on anecdotes. Like I'm saying based on what I my understanding is that the data shows that Americans mostly care about inflation and get basically purchasing power and affordability more than the nuclear dust being taken out. Is that data
that
correct?
separates the question, though, right? There, if you're asking me how do they feel about the IRGC, what's a win for them in this account, the data shows that 80% of them don't want them to. If you're talking about, okay, how do you convince them that there's a win here? Do they care more? Yeah, I mean, I could care more about water than food, but I still care about food. I'll die without 2 days of water. I can live without a week of food. That doesn't mean I don't care about food. So they may care more about that because it's more important, but that doesn't mean that they don't care about what's going on in Iran because it affects it in the long term. One of the things I would like to do is show Americans, hey, for your bottom dollar, this thing not becoming a toll booth for Iran is a very good thing. For your bottom dollar, it would benefit. That's why I would like to make an elevator pitch to the Americans. It is in your best interest for the stability of Israel and Iran. If you get these two people stabilized, your prices are going to go down by half. Like everything's going to get cut in half. Not everything, but like a good portion of right now, urea and other, I would say, fertilizers went up double in price. It could go down to half or less. Like half would be where it was before the war, even less than that if we have stability in Iran and Israel. This is very
Yeah,
important
but
for
that's an
America's
uphill.
bottom dollar.
So I'm not. By the way, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. Okay, I'm just adding. Like every time I say something, I'm adding to what you're saying rather than trying to negate what you're saying right now. Okay, because I'm with you there. But I'm assuming that that's an uphill battle, right? Because to like, especially like for us to try to convince the Americans that long term this is in their best interest when it comes to affordability and purchasing power is more difficult than what they could see with their eyes now at the gas pump, right? That will have a more direct influence on them than me and you trying to go and talk to people and be like, listen, long term, this is good for you. That's a difficult argument to make, right?
It is a difficult argument to. It's not. It's a difficult argument to surmise. I call them busy Americans, Walmart Americans. They're very busy. So if you're going to explain this in a way that will make them care, you got to make it short and to the point. Like short and to the point would get to them. It is an uphill battle, but it is an uphill battle because we have a 5-1 in the press and five, like let's say 5 channels, 4 are leftist channels. 5 speakers on any program, 4 speakers are leftists. So you're going to have a very muddled uphill battle. But if you're talking about overall, do they care? Yes, they care. Do they care more than they care about what's immediately in their pocket? No, but they do care.
By the way,
That's how you win the middle.
I might be wrong about this because Texas Troop is putting in the YouTube chat saying, Armin, polling data showed in the most recent general election, the number one voter issue were related to national security. So I might be wrong about that, but I don't, when it comes, but Texas Troop, can you, I don't know if you have access to that data. When they talk about national security, I'm assuming, again, I might be wrong about this, but I will give in to whatever the data shows. But I think that they mostly are talking about the southern border. Like when it comes to number one voter issue related to national security, if that's number one, I think what they have there in one is basically migration from the southern border.
No, no, because migration from the southern border by who? Jihadis, Somalis. We have Somali learning centers where there are a bunch of Islamists trying to take advantage of the economic system and defraud it. We have more and more terror attacks by people that have gone through lax immigration. When we're talking about national security, it's anything to do with security. These people are watching how these protests are going crazy. And what flag do they see in these protests? It's the Palestine flags. They're seeing all these anti-Semitic attacks at synagogues. When they're talking about national security, it absolutely completely includes that because that's been a part. The immigration thing is actually relatively new. The biggest problem with national security for the last 20, 40 years has been Islamic extremism ever since 9/11.
Yeah, but if Islamic extremism is coming from the southern border, then that doesn't negate what I'm saying.
No, but it adds a context that takes it away from the other national security things like the Venezuelan gangs, which were kind of like posted by the Shadow Fleet, by that whole system. America's having an awakening of understanding.
So you don't need to say no. You can say like yes, but in addition, let me provide more context because what you said didn't negate what I'm saying. You just added more context to it. Yeah. Okay.
So I would add that the southern border at the beginning was more about immigrants taking advantage of the system, but it has grown to so many different nations. China is one of the nations that's coming up through the southern border. A lot of African nations coming up through the southern border has led to this is basically the first topic that we're discussing then, that has led to the southern border and all borders becoming a national interest, not just economically, but also because the highest rate of terror that we have is from Islamic extremists, and the highest source of Islamic extremism is Iran. So it's all kind of related. The president and Marco Rubio have done a good job through repetition and simplification to say all this Islamic extremism has always come from Iran. It's been 47 years. Once that starts clicking in through repetition, it starts to gain traction. And that's what's been starting to gain traction, that all our national security issues have come from this Iranian, IRGC support of proxies in the Houthis. Like that's been repeated so much that it's starting to sink in.
Yeah. Okay. There are people, I saw some, who's modding today?
I can mod. I call the twos if you want. Okay.
We have a whole bunch of twos. So Danny, now that you're modding less, you should put more ones and twos in the chat because now we get to, maybe now you could put more, because I love to hear what Danny has to say as well. So maybe he has more time to think about what he wants to say.
All right. First two I have here is Noah. I'm going to throw in a two for Danny because I also love to hear his thoughts. But the first one to speak on this is Noah.
So Sketch, I love you, man, but I gotta disagree with you on some things. I think Americans really care about inflation right now. And yes, gas prices have started going down, but I'm going to give you a perspective in my area. They've only gone down 80 cents. And before the war, gas was $2.56. It's $4.25 in my area still. So it hasn't even gone below $4 yet in my area. So people are still worried about if they can afford to put gas in the gas pumps, or petrol if you're outside the United States and Canada. So I think they're really worried about inflation and gas prices right now more than they are about immigration right now. I think immigration is a lesser issue. Affordability is the major issue going on right now. And the longer the war goes on for a lot of Americans, I'm not saying I'm one of them. I want the regime to fall no matter what. But as long as the war continues, a lot of Americans are going to say, well, why is it worth it? My gas prices are so high in some areas that I can't even afford to put like food on the table or stuff. I got to choose between like electricity or food or whatnot. And I know in a lot of areas, the prices have gone down by a lot and people are seeing relief. But in my area, it hasn't happened yet. It's only started to partially happen, but not by a lot. Yeah.
All right. If I'm gonna have just like a 10-second reply, like I said, you care about water more than you do food. If you need water, you don't care about food. You do care about food. You don't care about as much as water. So right now, water is the inflation in gas prices. Now, let's say he wins the war, prices do come down. Then you won't care about that much, and then the national security issue will come back up. So that's where we're not in disagreement. I'm agreeing with you. They do need that water or they'll die, but it's in there. You know what I'm saying? Like it is important. It's not unimportant. It's just less important. And next to reply on this, we have Cherry.
I just want to reiterate that in America, we are very used to this game. The game of the media not covering the way things should be covered. We're used to this. What we're hearing about what people care about and what people don't care about is through the media. But if you talk to the average person, it is absolutely 100% different from what the media is trying to tell you. Yes, we do. We care about inflation. We care about gas prices. We care about food prices. But at the same time, we really do care about, we're sick and dang tired of having to worry about the terrorists. We're sick and damn tired of it. Yes, they come through the southern border. But if you talk to the average American, we are willing, once we're educated and understand, and that's part of the problem is the media, orange man bad, no matter what. But yeah, we care about those things, but we do care about, Sketch had a good point on saying that we do care about our security. We absolutely care about that first until you get to the far left. And then they care about boys playing in girls' sports, all the crazy stuff. But most Americans are not interested in that being an issue.
All right. Next to reply on this is Jeff. And I agree with Cherry.
So I guess the focus of the discussion centers around where where the U.S. population is vis-a-vis supporting continued operations against the regime remnants that are in the process of being ousted from legally occupying Iran. So it's very much split. Like, first, Americans are the most generous people on the planet when it comes to things like donating to charity, paying for international institutions up until recently. And it's not because of lack of generosity, it's because of ingratitude and the corruption that exists there. So I'm just going to put that out the gate. It's very much shaking out around partisan lines, as one might guess. Republicans are majoritively supportive of military action against the regime remnants, about 77 to 85% last I looked at it. I don't know, that was a little like yesterday. Democrats, which are that party is predominantly and tragically held by radical leftists and or independents, and those are heavily opposed, between 60 and 95% opposed. As far as like gas prices and table issues undermining, say, national will and all of that, I mean, that has a role. That said, that's again part and parcel of why things like this are these efforts like what goes on here are so important. What Goldie and Tusi and Armin and all of us and everybody, what we do. I mean, our adversaries are actively gauging out where we are politically because they know they can't beat us on the field of battle, and we kick their ass between our shoulder blades. So, yeah, that's the argument you have to make, is what Sketch is outlining. I mean, that there's no doubt about it. I would also add, we wouldn't be in a lot of these tight spots if we didn't have to, if we weren't like hamstrung by ill-contrived and in many cases seditious policies by the radical left, right? We wouldn't have had to worry about gas prices if we didn't cannibalize our natural gas and oil industry and refineries. We haven't built new refineries since the 70s. We're just now doing that. We wouldn't have had to deal with the Mullah regime if we didn't have non-interventionists, predominantly on the left, deny, say, former President George W. Bush's plans to take out the Mullah regime in 2005. Or Obama fucking over brave Iranian kids in 2009, or Obama denying the DOD to sanitize, say, our RQ-170 drone when it was hacked by the IRGC and MOIS and crashed inside Iran, which directly underwrote the Mullah regime's development of Shahed 136s. I mean, the list goes on, right? We wouldn't be in this mess if we didn't sit there and have, I don't know, like Obama retreads worrying about or fucking over our Ukrainian allies by carving out two like $10 billion waivers for the sanctions against Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state to sell 2 light water reactors to Iran. I mean, the list goes on and on. Just like we were talking about Kelly here, she was very much concerned about her family, I don't want to speak her, with somebody she's close to. And we talked about, well, you wouldn't have to really worry about, say, collateral damage if, say, I don't know, former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld's forced transformation efforts weren't undermined, because we wouldn't even need to use bombs. You would just vaporize soft targets with a free electron laser bounced off a bifurcated mirror in orbit, which is what they were looking to do. I mean, that's the argument, right? That's how you frame the argument. On top of all the other things that both Armin and Sketch rightly identified, it's why are we in this spot? What about illegal immigration? Well, yeah, nobody has a problem with immigration. We have a problem with illegal immigration when you have fucking 22 million people cross the southern border. You have no goddamn idea who they are, particularly in the context of the Chinese Communist Party pandemic, Wuhan COVID-19. They didn't even test them for fucking COVID. Never mind, they let loose 18,000 plus people that openly admitted they were tied to Hezbollah. What the fuck? I mean, that's the argument. I mean, as far as the importance of making the argument, like Armin and Sketch is right about that. You have to maintain national will, public buy-in, pushing off issue fatigue. That's why everybody here is a soldier in the battle of the narratives, that soft power battle space. Armin hammers that home every day, and he's not wrong.
Soldiers
and here to battle a little more. Please go ahead and have a response. I know you threw a 2 in there. Would you like to speak more on this now, or would you like to go last, Armin?
No, I was just appreciating Jeffrey saying soldiers in the battlefield of narratives. I just want to appreciate that. But let's go with this. I think I'm at the bottom of this.
Okay. Next, we have Treaty. Treaty, go ahead, please.
Evening, wherever you are. I think, yeah, I do agree with Jeffrey regarding it. It is the result of 47 years of bad policy towards Iran, starting with Carter. But having said that, I believe Mr. President Trump has been doing this very greatly. First of all, he was securing the oil, resources that's coming to America, so to keep the price controlled. And secondly, how much was the petrol prices before President Trump comes to office in Biden? I believe it was much higher than this, if I'm not wrong. So Biden ended up with very bad, high prices. And Mr. President, by doing the right things, controlled the economy, and the prices came down. But it wasn't long ago when two beautiful souls were murdered by IRGC in New York? So the IRGC effects are happening in America, and people's lives are threatened by them. And I think if you ask those families who've lost members, dear members, they would say, we don't mind if the gas prices go up, but IRGC is sorted, so we feel safer when IRGC is not there. That was my point only. Thank you.
That is a very good point. Under Biden's policy, the gas prices were incredibly high. Anybody complaining about them now and forgetting how they were during Biden is being either very forgetful or a bit of a hypocrite. And I would move on to Sophie. Sophie, go ahead and speak.
I very much agree with Treaty. And that's what I would say back to some of the points that Noah had made. Love you, Noah. I disagree with some of the stuff that you were saying. I really love Noah though, guys. So don't think I'm picking on Noah. So, gas is actually one of the highest where I live comparatively across the United States. But I've watched it steadily go down for the last month. But I think Americans have very short-term memories. So we like facts here. I pulled up Gas Buddy. I'm looking at a chart. I've got things that you can all go in as a chart. It's a well-used thing in the United States. And I can go back the past 8 years to when was Trump president. I can look at all these spikes and how long they listed and up and down, but really staying extremely high. So this was going on in 2022, throughout 2023, 2024. You look at prices from the last administration from Trump, even when COVID hit, like much lower. We've had some recent stuff and it's been much shorter. So that's my first thing. So it has gone down quite a lot. I've noticed that a lot of people, they are not accurate in their memory, but there's a few other things that are kind of frustrating. Okay, I'm on a tight budget right now because of personal things. I won't get into that, but you can make just simple choices about, okay, when people say I'm having a hard time affording this, some of the same people who are saying this, they're actually buying things that I would call luxuries. So, if you smoke, if you drink, if you buy cookies, if you buy crackers, if you're washing your car constantly, you might actually change just a few things that you do all the time that we take as convenience that are really nice things we do for ourselves. I literally made a joke when I both cost match my expensive dog food, like across the country, because I'm in an expensive area. But I also made a joke and I said, like, hey, see how my car's not washed? Yeah, gas prices. So I'm empathizing with people and doing the Walmart thing too. Like I'm saying, hey, I'm with you. I'm not saying it's not happening. It's short term, but you do what you can do. I actually live around a bunch of people who I realize you don't all live near a Walmart, but some people, not Walmart, excuse me. Oh my gosh, Sketch, I'm hearing too much from your Walmart thing. It's in my vocabulary now. So no, Costco. So Costco, guys, look, I worked there when I was 16. Fair comment, all right? So they will give you back your money if you don't literally make up your membership and save money. Not a commercial for Costco, but where I live, Costco is legit the only place I can afford to buy gas. I actually ban myself from buying gas across the street because it's usually the highest in my state. And I literally will punish myself, carrot and stick myself. So we can all try this. I literally will if I'm completely out of gas, which is my bad planning, and I'm low, I will make myself just get a few dollars to drive to the Costco. See how that works? I'm trading myself. But you can swap things out. And I would point out with groceries, my groceries are higher, but they have nothing to do with what's going on now with a war. They were high before. They just are. I don't know. I feel like groceries, they raise, businesses, they raise prices and then they make up every excuse to not bring those back down. So I see Jose shaking, nodding his head.
But like some of this, I mean, you can go figure stuff out yourself. Like I buy from one big brand and they're buying various things from Canada for some of the ingredients that they don't need to, that we have in the US in the middle of tariff fighting back and forth. Not that that matters. I'm just saying, like, anyway, that's enough. I make people can actually take some responsibility with looking at how do we substitute what's really harming us with gas with where can I make up that difference? Do you go out for drinks? Can you go to happy hour instead? Can you not buy the cookies? Can you buy, like, I don't know, blueberries? See, nutrition, people, and a sweet. I'm just saying instead. That's all. Sale shop.
I agree with a large portion of that. Adjustment is something that when people have to adjust, they get a little angry, they get a little, wait a minute, what's going on? So that is very true. And adjustment may be the most appropriate response and to make this not really a big issue. But if that's why I like data, because like Treaty and Sophie has pointed out, these gas prices were a lot higher. Now we will move on with Shauna. Shauna, go ahead.
I just want to point out that I 100% would agree with what Sophia said. Like, my husband and I do notice a lot, like, if we're being lazy and using Instacart instead of driving our asses to the store, like, it costs more money. So little simple things like that do make a huge difference in the dollar. Also, I will say that a lot of Americans don't know how to budget. They cut basic economic training from schools and people don't know what to do. I'm not saying that's the Iranians' fault. I'm not saying that's anybody's fault. I'm just stating that a lot of those programs were cut. I just want to say, though, that we have to find a way to communicate to people's feelings. I understand that we care about facts and data and truth, but people vote based on their feelings. If they're feeling like they're not being heard and that their economic concerns aren't being validated, they might just punish you. And I don't know the solution to that, but that could have a huge impact on the global on things. They could just vote and punish you because they're pissed off. In fact, Trump's first election was largely won because it was a fuck you to the Democrats who had abandoned the working class. At least that's how they felt. So I just always want to reiterate that point. I know I'm not saying that they're correct. I'm not saying they're correct about the gas prices. I'm saying that people are complaining and that they're feeling how they're feeling. So that's my only point is, remember, facts don't care about your feelings, but feelings don't give a fuck about your facts. So that's it.
I would agree with that. And this is my push for elevator pitches for the Walmart American take. This is why I commend Rubio and Trump in his simplifying and repetition. That needs to go into the economic side, but I agree. And next we have Jose. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Would you like to interject, Armin? You seem like you were about to say something.
Yeah, just quickly regarding facts and feelings, it's completely true that it's better for us not to use feelings to come up with conclusions. But if we want to come up with the conclusions, we can't ignore other people's feelings. People say, like, I go by facts, not by feelings. Well, people's feelings could be measured, empirically measured, and feelings is data that needs to be people's feelings is data that could be empirically gathered and analyzed. So you personally is good for you, a good idea for you to be more objective. But it is absolute fact that people's feelings do matter, not from an anecdotal perspective, but from a statistical perspective. You need to, if you care about objective facts, part of objective reality is people make decisions based on their feelings, and you need to empirically go gather the data regarding these feelings and figure out how they're going to behave accordingly based on those feelings. So we cannot ignore feelings. We need to measure it and we need to respond accordingly.
Absolutely agree. The feelings of support that America have for ending the nuclear powers from Iran, IRGC, do not negate the feelings that America has about their pocketbook. These are statistical fact. I like to take the statistical view. but this is absolutely true. These facts do not negate each other. And with that, we will move on with Jose.
Big
Go ahead, Jose.
switch. Can I just quickly add to that, because that's a very important point. Also, because people's feelings matter, we need to come up with messaging that addresses not just the facts, but also has the highest emotional impact. And we could also measure that and do trial and error and see which one is more effective. It's not enough for you to have truth on your side. You also need to figure out the best way to communicate the truth. So you need to basically use data to figure out what works into communicating that. What's up? Yeah, go on.
Emotional weapons, spiritual weapons, not physical weapons always. You have to use your creativity and your art to get a point across. That's absolutely true. Go ahead, Jose, please.
Thank you. I'm going to take you back in time to the first time OPEC decided to stick 2x4 into the United States. I was just started my first job at the time here in Florida. I had to wear white pants, white shirt, a fucking bow tie as I pumped gas and cleaned windows. The cost of a gallon of gas was 85 cents a gallon. Cars, the good ones, the most economical ones, got you 8 miles to the gallon. Okay? It went up to double the price in roughly 2 weeks. And all I heard was, this is intolerable, this is that. People, get a life. If it hasn't doubled on you, I can understand those people back there more than I can stand the people complaining about the gas prices now. I mean, look at why your prices are so high. Take a look at who are there in the government. Take a look how much is taxes per gallon. Okay? In California, take a look at the fact that, and basically the entire coast out that way, take a look at the fact that the Democratic government of California fined the 3 major oil companies out there for refining because they were polluting. They had gotten their polluting down, so it was almost negligible in comparison to the rest of the world's big polluters. But what happened? They had to shut down because $1 billion fine a day that they operated, that was outrageous. So look at the policies, okay? I know that's an emotional pull, and it's a fact-filled pull, but it's reality, okay? I look at the prices now, and I'm looking at it, and guess what? I'm 2 cents from the price that it was here in Florida, and my zip code, okay, which is an upper end zip code price-wise, okay, 2 cents of matching what it was in December.
All right. I'm going to bet you looked adorable in a bow tie. And next to speak, we have Halda. Do I put you in last, Armin, so you can get closing thoughts, or would you like to go now?
Can I just? I want to see what other people have to say about this. So I just want to keep, because we want to be empirical. Just want to quickly give you the numbers. Okay, so University of Illinois GFAPS poll in June 2026. When asked the most important issues in the upcoming midterm elections, cost of living and inflation dominated across all political affiliations. So for the independents and other voters, 48%, 48.3% of the voters selected as their top issue. So this was the highest compared to everything else. Like you might say like 48 is less than 50%. Everything else was like lower, right? So for the Democrats, it was 44.7%. And for Republicans, it was 32.8%. Gallup on May 2026 mentions of the high cost of living and inflation as the most important problem facing the country rose to 15% in May, nearly double the 8% recorded in February. And then we had, so, I mean, I'm not going to read the other issues. Let me just go some other. So here's an interesting. So when it comes to Gallup, it really depends on how you'd ask a question, right? If you just put the issues next to each other, government poor leadership gets 29%, immigration gets 20%, the economy only gets 11%. So you might think like, well, the economy is now less important than government and immigration here based on this poll. And economy general gets 11%, but inflation and high prices gets only 8% here. Unifying the country gets 7%, and then there's a whole bunch of other things less than that. However, when voters are given a list of specific policy issues and asked to choose which one should be the absolute top priority leading up to the 2026 midterms, then when asked like that, then economic basically crushes everything else. The economic survival crushes every other issue. It's interesting that you get different results based on how you ask the questions, and you get policies one by one rather than just generally, do you care about the economy or other stuff? So when you ask like that, lowering prices and inflation gets 57%, and controlling immigration gets 16%, reducing crime gets 9%, ending the Ukraine-Russia war gets 7%, maintaining peace in Israel and Gaza gets 6%, eliminating drug trafficking gets 4%. So you get a completely different result if you generally if you generally ask them what they care about, or when you get them specific policies, you get a completely different result, which is interesting. So those are the numbers.
I would like to say about that, like if I'm just looking at the numbers, okay, you asked them economy, it came out 11. Of that 11%, of those 11%, if you make that 100%, like 100% of that 11% put 56% on inflation. Is that how that works out? Because you're taking away other topics. If you're saying, okay, if you only have to talk about the economy, what's most important within that economy? Because it's not the most important to them. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You would have to like separate that out into what is most important and then what's most
Right.
important within that ranking. I'm not as good as numbers as you, so I'm deferring to you on my thoughts on this.
Okay, yeah, I think that you might be right. When people hear generally the economy, we're like, yeah, sure, right. But then when you tell them like rent, like if somebody is dealing with rent, they're like, yes, yeah, rent. Holy shit, I'm dealing with that right now. If you tell them about like inflation, if somebody is, that might resonate more with somebody if you specifically mention something that is hurting them more. So you get better, more bigger numbers that way.
I think what I was referring to is like if what is most important to me is leadership. That's what's most important to me. But if you're going to make me talk not about leadership, you're going to make me talk about the economy, then rent goes super high and housing goes super high. But that is not my most important. My most important is still leadership. But because you're putting me in this box where I have to talk about economy, inside that box, that's what's most important. If you let me be outside the box, my most important is leadership. Do you understand what I don't know if I'm pushing the issue
that's
too much.
personally
You understand what I
you,
mean?
right? Yeah, but that's personally you, right? Like you're not saying that.
No, I'm going by I'm saying that the numbers show that what they care about is leadership, but if you put them in the box of the economy, within that box, that's what they care most about.
Okay, so you're right. Like, okay, so here's the thing: poor leadership, okay, that's getting the highest amount if you don't put them in the. No, because I don't think that's what's happening. Okay, because so let me tell you, the one that shows poor leadership as the highest, that's Gallup, right? And it's just generally putting everything next to each other. Okay, the other poll that shows the economy matters more. That's, I don't know how you pronounce this. Marist poll. So that is let me read the description of this so that you could better come up with a better conclusion. So when voters are given a list of specific policy issues and asked to choose which one should be the absolute top priority leading up to the 2026 midterms, economic survival crushes every other issue. So no, I don't think that you're being forced to pick one in every category. I'm not sure. I think you're being forced to pick the number one. Actually, that's a good clarification that we need. Are you picking one in every category, or your general highest priority among all the policies? Because I think your key insights, let me see, when forced to prioritize actionable policy, a massive majority point directly to their wallets, lowering prices. And no, I think basically all the policies together, mixed together, people choosing the absolute priority among all of them mixed together, then the economic ones comes higher. Does that make sense?
When you pointed out the question, it made more sense to me because I think one of the things you touched on was how you ask the question matters. And I see what you mean. I see what you mean there because how they ask that question, I'm like, okay, so they are choosing overall. They're not just in the box like they were. Okay, I see what you mean.
My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics. The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.